Welcome back to Joyfully at Home. Today we're going to go ahead and make another Valentine's treat. And this treat can be literally for any holiday, but today we're going to kind of put it in a Valentine's spin. This is going to be our filled sugar cookies today. We're going to have a raspberry filling to our sugar cookie dough. Now, this sugar cookie dough is so universal that you can use it for any holiday, and then we are going to use them to make our raspberry-filled Valentine cookies. So for our cookie dough, our sugar cookie dough, we're going to go ahead and start with a mixture, and you can put these in separately, mix them, either way is fine. We're going to make a half batch of dough today. So this is a 1/4 cup of shortening and a 1/4 cup of softened butter. You can double this recipe. You can even triple this recipe. It's so easily convertible to however much cookie dough you want to make. I've made very large batches of cookies from this dough. I've made small batches. With this half batch of cookie dough, you're going to get about 30 single cookies, 30 to 35 single cookies. So it does make quite a few cookies in a full batch, 60 to 70 cookies. But since we're going to be sandwiching these together with the raspberry in the middle, we're probably going to get anywhere between 10 and 15 finished filled cookies. And then we're going to add a 1/2 cup of sugar. I'm going to cream those together, and then we'll continue on with our ingredients. Now that we have our shortening, butter, and sugar creamed together, we're going to add 1 large egg. We'll go ahead and we'll incorporate our egg, and then we'll move on to our dry ingredients. We're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We have a 1/2 of baking powder and a teaspoon of cream of tartar. That will give your cookies a little bit of body so they don't spread really wide and flat. It keeps them a little bit puffier. And then we have a 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. So now that all of the rest of our ingredients are in here, we'll just go ahead and whip this up until we have a nice smooth dough. So now this is what your cookie dough is going to end up looking like. You ball it all together in your mixer bowl. Make sure that you scrape your sides down, and you've got a nice semi-stiff cookie dough. It's still plenty soft. So at this point, you don't want to go ahead and roll your cookies out at this stage. You want to make sure that you wrap this dough, just wrap it in a piece of plastic wrap, and refrigerate it for at least 2 to 3 hours. It'll get a nice stiffness to it, so that butter isn't going to immediately melt as soon as it goes to the oven. So you want to give this a nice chill, 2 to 3 hours in the refrigerator before you roll it out. You can even make this a day ahead and keep it in the refrigerator overnight. It's not going to hurt anything. Now that our cookie dough is all chilled, you can see this is exactly how we had it chilling in the refrigerator, and you can see it's much stiffer now, which is going to be great for rolling your cookies. So what we're going to do is, I tend to like to work with a small piece of dough rather than having a giant piece of dough and trying to keep that all consistently rolled to the same thickness. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut this about in half. Obviously, it doesn't have to be exact. And just lightly dust your counter with a little bit of flour. I have had this for many, many years. This is actually a Pampered Chef tool, but you can use just a round circular cookie cutter, 3 to 3.5 inches. I use this because this is actually one of those crimp and seal type little tools where it's nice. You can just put your other cookie on top when you're making these filled cookies, press down, and it crimps it automatically for you and seals it. You can also do the same thing with a standard cookie cutter and a fork, and you can just crimp the edges with a fork as well. It's just as easy. I just like my little tool. I've loved that little thing for so long. And what we're going to do to make them more Valentine's-ish, we're going to go ahead and our top cookie, we're going to use this tiny little heart-shaped cutter to just cut out the center and make them a little bit fancier today. So we're going to go ahead and get our cookie dough rolled out to about 1/4 inch, and then we're going to start cutting. You just don't put a lot of pressure to it, a little bit. And I tend to be one that I like to get it about here, and I just loosen it and I turn it, tighten up my edges a little bit so I'm not cracking. And it does that because it is cold, so it will crack a little bit. Now that you've got your dough all rolled out, and you'll see thickness wise you're about 1/4 inch thick, you'll want to go ahead and start cutting your cookies. Again, try to space them as close together as you can, and you'll see you'll get nice thin cookies, but not too super thin. Now you'll see that we've got about 7 cookies out of this one piece here. You've got all this cookie dough left. No need to waste it. With this cookie dough recipe, you can just gather it back together, and you can re-roll this right back out. As long as your dough and your kitchen temperature per se hasn't gotten too warm. You want to still make sure that this dough is pretty chilled. So if your dough hasn't gotten too warm, and you'll know because if this dough gets too warm, it will get sticky. So, but if you can still take that dough after gathering it and roll it out nice and smooth with just the same little bit of flour, then you'll be able to re-roll and get some more circles out of it. So we've gotten 12 cookies out of this one piece of dough, which is half of our dough that we made. So you're going to get about 24 to 26, I would say, out of that half batch of dough. So again, once you sandwich these together, you're going to have about 12 cookies or so. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just take our little heart cutter in the center. We're just going to cut our little heart into the center of each of these circles. These will be our top cookie. And then we'll go ahead and we will pull out those little hearts, and we can put those right on our pan and bake those as well. So first thing we'll do is we'll transfer those little hearts right to our prepared pan, which you can use an ungreased cookie sheet, or if you have parchment, you can go ahead and just put these right on a parchment lined pan. I actually find parchment easier because it's a little less fussy. You don't have to worry about cleanup as much, and it always turns out great cookies. So I put our little hearts over there, and we'll sprinkle them with a little bit of sanding sugar before we go in the oven. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take whatever kind of jam you like. For these, I'm using a seedless red raspberry jam. It works great, and it's a great jam for Valentine's Day, being that it's nice and red. So we just take a teaspoon or 2 into the center of your cookie. You don't want to get too close to your edges because that's where you're going to go ahead and crimp your cookie together. And just keep doing that for each of your bottom cookies. Spread it out a little bit. So now you'll take your other cookie that we had already cut our shapes out of. Just top your bottom cookie with your jam, and we'll line it right up like that so your edges are pretty well lined up. Then you take either your fork, if that's what you're using, and just take the edge of your fork, the tines of your fork along the edge of it, and crimp it down. Or with this, Just take it and lay it back over the top of it. Press. And then you've got your cookie crimped together. So now that we have all of our top cookies on and all crimped, we're just gonna take a few pink sprinkles and just give them a little extra Valentine's touch. And just sprinkle them just lightly with a few little pink sanding sugars. And we can go ahead and give our little heart cutouts a little touch too. Now that we have our first pan of cookies ready, we can go ahead and put them in the oven. We're going to put them in at 375 degrees, and they're going to go for about 8 to 10 minutes. You're going to want to watch them as you come closer to your time. You're going to want the edges to be firm, but not brown. You're going to want these to be a nice light cookie. You're not going to want to get them brown because then they get crunchy. You're going to want them to stay nice and soft. So you wait till the edges are firm and just barely starting to brown, but not actually get golden brown or anything like that. You just want them to just be at that start of that getting brown. Just a light brown. And make sure the edges are firm. Pull them, let them cool on your pan for a minute, and then you're good to go.